Probably our best episode. Watch. Well, hey everybody. My name is Jared Malat. I'm here with my good friend Mateo Calise, and this is the Coltist, an Indianapolis Colts, Indiana Pacers podcast. This is season 2, episode 5, and we're calling this the best of the rest. AKA, we're starting to get a little anxious here leading up to the draft because Mateo, am I catching the wind right? Chris Ballard's pretty comfortable at 4. Is that kind of
Yeah, does not seem like he's trading up. Like there are no indications to say that he's trading up. Like the only scenario in my head that I believe that he's trading up is if it goes, Young and then Stroud or Stroud and then Young. And he might panic and say, okay, what if the Cardinals trade back with the say, the Raiders or what the Falcons, for example, and what if the Cardinals trade back with either one of those teams?
mm-hmm.
And then they go out and get Anthony Richardson, and then you're stuck at 4, and you're like, okay, do I take a shot at Will Levis here? Do I go best player available and just take, Will Anderson? Do I try and trade back, even though, pretty much any other team will know my leverage is gone. Like I have no leverage whatsoever. So yeah, we are kind of like the Panthers trade put us in an awkward position where you're like, you almost have to, trade up with the Cardinals
Mm-hmm.
up to that number 3 spot. And then, at number 3, I would be like, give me either Young, Stroud, or Richardson, and I'm happy.
Yeah.
Perhaps, the Colts are thinking the exact same thing, and they're like, okay, if we manage to get either one of those 3, we'll be just fine. And what would you have to give up to move up to number 3? Probably not much. Like,
That would be my only thing is like, would it, and again, this is just trying to light a fire. Like, if you think about the costs for moving to 4 to 3, would it just be better for your franchise to just give up 2 first-round picks and take Lamar Jackson and do that route instead, given what
yeah,
he's put down on film in the NFL
yeah,
versus taking we don't know what's going to happen when we have like a guy with years of experience in the NFL who's going to require you giving up picks. So my question again will always be like, if I'm going for 4 to 3 and Arizona comes back and says, well, obviously we want your 1 this year.
yeah, of course. And then,
We'll give you our second round next year for your, and you give us your first next year. Are you trading this year's first and next year's first to move up 1 spot to take a 20-something-year-old, right? Question mark.
yeah,
Like legit,
yeah,
that's the purpose of this episode. So like if you like the content that I produce here and you're not, please like this video if you like it. Follow us and subscribe to this channel. But to keep it moving, the reality here is like I can't believe no one's thrown 195 million at Lamar Jackson fully guaranteed and said, for real, you're not you're not gonna take that? Because like right now he's what Lamar Jackson has been non-exclusive franchise tagged, which I believe is like $32.5 million, which is a pretty nice payday. Not
yeah,
not the
yeah.
highest
Not
paid in the league because Deshaun Watson got $230 million guaranteed, and because um Kirk Cousins got
Mahomes got,
almost
yeah,
90 million.
Kirk and
Mahomes has a
Mahomes
lifetime
and
contract, right?
Jalen Hurts probably up next, getting paid. But
Yeah.
the
And
the
I mean,
thing
how
with
much
me,
money
like,
do you give him? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, yeah. I mean, I understand, the concerns with giving a player like Lamar Jackson all that money because there have been some injury concerns. He has not been good in the playoffs, so you kind of understand that.
I have a question.
Yeah,
Do you think that Baltimore did a good job surrounding him with offensive weapons?
no, no,
Okay.
I don't. I think I
In
do
fact, for
think
the
that,
last 3 years, have they had Dick at running back? No.
yeah,
That
not any
offense
good running
was
backs.
all Mark Andrews.
Like they had Marquise Brown at the time, but they traded him away. What
Yeah.
I do believe is that the offensive coordinator Greg Roman, I believe he did a wonderful job, like
Mhm.
tailoring the offense around Lamar Jackson and what he
Mm.
can do.
It's
Greg
a,
Roman did a fantastic job there. I believe that, but
so don't you think
Baltimore, like,
part of that's Lamar Jackson too, right? Like they literally said he's the most successful quarterback through his first 1,000 throws in the NFL. Like That's on wax. There's you can't do anything about this. This is
Yeah.
on tape. The first 1,000 throws that a pro athlete, the best anyone's ever done, even Patrick Mahomes. Okay, so I'm not gonna be the guy that makes a podcast and says that if I'm Jeff Irsay, fuck it, burn it all down. Let's stay at 4, take Will Anderson, and or I'm trading
Yeah, no.
my first 2 picks. I'm taking because the thing about it is, let's back up and before we go back and say like, hey, this is what the Colts have done. Let's talk about this. You are in Chris Ballard / you are in the scouting department / the draft room on draft night. It's the 4th pick. The what if that you posited today. So, hey, thank you for giving us subject matter. We created this ourselves. We're not ripping someone else's premise. This is glory, right? So Mateo posts in our Discord today, hey, if you're Chris Ballard and it's the 4th pick of the NFL draft, and the draft goes like Bryce Young, Stroud, Richardson, and you're at 4, are you gambling on Will Levis? Like, what are you doing? And I realized when you posted that, like, oh shit, we're in trouble for an episode 5 title because the first 4, because okay, let me set this up. If you haven't really paid attention to what we've been talking about or what's really been going on with the Colts lately. Okay, so let's set this up. Chris Ballard had pointed out early this offseason, I'm gonna lose my job if I don't take a quarterback. So he's already told you like we're taking a guy. We pointed out earlier on this podcast just a few minutes ago that he also said I'm pretty comfortable at 4. So here's my question. It's Will Levis or Hendon Hooker or Stetson Bennett, or you know what I mean? Like those are your options if you're just saying I'm not betting on Will Levis. Now here's my thing. If I'm Chris Ballard and I'm at 4 and my options Will Levis, I'm trading back. Somebody else can have that. For the record, on wax, me saying if it goes prior, and here by the way, here's me patting myself on the back for when I not said, the first 4 picks in this draft could be quarterbacks. Looking more and more each day like the first 4 picks in this draft could very well be quarterbacks. But here's the thing. I can absolutely tell you that if I'm Chris Ballard and I'm at pick 4 and Jim Irsay's, breathing down the back of my neck, are you going to take Will Levis? Are you going to take Will Levis? And the phone rings, I'm picking it up. Hello?
Yeah.
Oh, you're going to trade me your what and your what and your what for my what? Oh, you can have it. 100%. Yes, absolutely. I will move back and stay in the top 10 or maybe even just bankroll picks.
Yeah, maybe people.
Yeah, somebody's going to pay. And the thing about it is, why not us? Everybody's been saying like, oh, the Colts need to trade up, give up resources. You don't understand what Chris Ballard is doing. When he leaves the NFL, one of the things that he'll point out is how employable a player he creates. Like, we are not only hitting on these draft picks, they're having careers in the NFL. And it may not be here, it may not be to the level you think, but what makes a successful NFL player, right? Somebody that's constantly on a 46 somewhere.
They're constantly sticking around.
They're sticking in the league. Chris Ballard will be patted on the back forever for that, because there really are, like, whether they stick or not, you just see him in, like Paris Campbell. He's gonna go play for the Giants. He's gonna have a decent career. Like, he just had a lot. I feel bad for his time here. Like, he was just injured a lot. Not a lot you could do about that. You gotta have empathy for the human, right? And realize, like, when we sit here on an Indianapolis Colts podcast, we have to talk about how transaction heavy the Colts have been. Early in this 2023 NFL season, I actually had to take notes, kids. So this is usually I don't storyboard. I do this off the rip, but the Colts have been pretty active. So let's go back to before the last time we met. Okay. Before the last time, or since the last time we met, the Colts have traded Stephon Gilmore to Dallas for a 5th-round draft pick. I did hear a little bit of where they're giving Chris Ballard a little bit of hell on the internet, saying like, "Oh, you traded one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL for a 5th-round pick. You're terrible." He's like over 30 years old.
Yeah.
Their trade value is just not there for him to get a pick in this year's class. It almost tells me that Chris Ballard's realized like he's creating a lot of NFL players. Really doesn't matter who we pick. We just need more shots. To piggyback on that, we talked about how sort of wide receiver desperate the Colts are. They re-signed Ashton Dulin, who, for the record, is a special teams player and
Yeah.
is going to make your 46 kind of regardless. But the trouble is that he's your current number 3 wide receiver. So that tells me the Colts need to do something there. Not to disrespect Ashton Dulin, I'm just saying like he does a lot of special teams.
Yeah,
It's a lot to ask a guy to be
yeah,
your
he's
number
a good
3.
blocker, but
Yeah.
he's not that. He's nowhere close. Like
He's
I saw it
spelling
today.
someone else.
Yeah, Paris Campbell got 91 targets last
Yeah.
season. So you're gonna have to replace, those 91 targets. So naturally, I believe you would expect Alec Pierce to take that next step and perhaps get some of those 91 targets.
Yeah.
But other than that, are you comfortable giving a player like Ashton Dulin 70 or 80 targets a year?
Right.
Like personally, I'm not, because that's a lot. So yeah, I would totally expect the Colts to get another guy.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we've sat here and said they traded Stephon Gilmore. They're definitely cornerback thin, right?
Yeah.
They re-signed Ashton Dulin. They're definitely wide receiver thin, and then they go out and sign Taven Bryan to a 1-year deal. It's a defensive tackle from the University of Michigan, right? By the way.
Yeah, he played for the Jaguars. I believe he will be, a nice complementary piece, a rotational defensive tackle that can. He's a good pass rusher. He played for the Jaguars a lot, and he was a 16-game starter for the Browns last year. He played like 700 snaps, so he was active every single game.
Yeah.
And you're getting him, as a rotational guy. That's great signing. We were talking, before we started the episode about Samson Ebukam, who I believe we both love. Like he's that's an A+ signing in my opinion. I have a friend who is a 49ers fan, and he told me, he might be overshadowed because he plays next to Nick Bosa, who is getting all the attention by the opposing offensive lineman. But this is a guy that is constantly impacting every single play. He's a high effort guy. He's gonna stop the run. He's gonna create pressure. He's gonna do the little things right.
Oh yeah,
and that's a guy that I love, a type of guy like that, and I believe that the Colts are building a nice defensive line.
Yeah.
But yeah, as you said, we did trade Stephon Gilmore to the Cowboys, which I believe, it's a good thing to do for a veteran player like Gilmore. Let's not just, have him stew here in a year that's probably going to be wasted.
Yeah.
Let him go to a contender and play in a nice defense. Like, do right by him. He's 33 or 32 years old. He gave us, like, I don't know if you remember, but the game against the Broncos, and I believe it was also the game against the Raiders, where he had those game-sealing interceptions.
Yep.
Against the Broncos, I remember it was one in overtime where he was like, okay, we won that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you do right by him, and you just let him go.
He'll let him go to the Cowboys, who won't win their division and will lose in the wild card. So
yeah, I don't know if they're not winning. Like the Seahawks, the Eagles. Sorry, I saw today that they lost a ton of talent.
Yeah,
like they lost both their offensive and defensive coordinators. They lost Javon Hargrave, who I believe was the heart and soul of that defense.
Yeah,
they lost both their starting safeties. Miles Sanders is now in the Carolina Panthers. You're like, okay, this is going to be a much more different team than the one before.
Yeah.
So are they gonna be as dominant, or are they gonna take a step back? Because I don't know. I don't know. I think honestly, the Cowboys. I'm not saying this is gonna be the year they finally, perform and do well in the playoffs. Yeah. But they always have those nice regular seasons where they finish like a number 1 or number 2 seed. Then they collapse in the playoffs eventually, like they always do.
But... Yeah, that's how it goes. As long as Jerry Jones is in charge, man, you can
Yeah,
you can get him to playoff, but can you get him to give it all for you when it
yeah.
matters the most? You know what I mean?
Like it's just it's how the script goes. It's the Cowboys post dominant regular season,
Oh yeah,
then they just collapse in the
they look like
playoffs.
a
It's
sure thing. You know what I mean? And then
yeah, it's just they
just
they they
facts.
end up losing like against the I don't know, like against the Daniel Jones Giants or whatever in the playoffs, and you're like,
Tough.
yeah, it's gonna be our year next year. You just know it won't.
Yep. I mean that's the life of a Cowboys fan.
Yeah,
Middling to not good enough. So, in addition to like we said, we're thin at cornerback. They train Stephon Gilmore. We're thin at wide receiver. They sign Ashton Dulin. They pick up Taven Bryan. They get us Samson Ibukam. And then obviously the big thing here. Wait, we released Matt Ryan. We kind of knew that was going to happen. I'm a
yeah,
little
yeah,
surprised. Surprised, but not really. I felt like there was shadows of Matt Ryan having lost it all last year. And like I said, a lot of it had to do with throws in the pocket where like he gets affected at all and that ball has nothing on it. And I was just like, man, that's tough. It's tough to pay that person millions of dollars when it's like he looks like paper mache to me. Um,
yeah,
Also, signed Garner Minshew. And again,
yeah.
I had people
I
messaging me like, "Hey, is that actually a good thing?" And first of all, I love Garner Minshew, so you can't talk me
I
off
love
not
I
liking
love
him.
Garmisch too. Yeah,
Um,
I love him.
so quarterback is incredibly difficult position to play. There is a mountain of pressure you can't ever live up to for most of these people. Okay. Garner Minshew is a person that has sort of just embraced whatever role I'll have in this game. And I appreciate his sort of like fervor, like kind of the way he does it. Where he's come in off the street literally and backs people up and has gotten to play and has come in and played pretty well. It was actually showing it. They were showing a game of his that he played in this past season, I believe for the Eagles, like where he
Yeah,
played like the whole game. And in like the first half, he was 13 for 21 for like 170 yards and a touchdown. Yes, he had thrown for an interception, but it was off a tip pass. So it's like he's completing like 66% of his passes. He had a touchdown. He had a ball that hit someone in the hands. It flipped up in the air and the defense caught it. Oh, okay. So like he's a professional quarterback in the NFL, probably going to be pressed to start. And I don't think it matters what happens with the Colts. I honestly don't think it matters who that person is. Um, I think that there's a good chance, and again, I want to make sure we keep saying this, but like Peyton Manning was a big Shane Steichen fan,
yeah,
right? Steichen, whatever. Um, Also Peyton Manning, a big Hendon Hooker fan. So the question was, if you're at 4 and your options Will Levis or overdraft Hendon Hooker at 4, right? Like, no, I don't think you do that. And I don't think
yeah. I wouldn't do any
anybody's
one of
betting on him in a
those.
first
Yeah,
round anyway. So I think if I'm at Ballard at 4 and it's Will Levis in the conditional situation that you lined up today, where you said if it goes Stroud or Young, Richardson, 1, 2, 3, and you're at 4, and that's where you decided to live and die, is like, are you taking Will Levis? Are you betting the future of the franchise on Will Levis? No, I trade to, I trade back, let somebody else make that mistake. And I'm banking on if at 4 it's Will Levis or trade back, take Hendon Hooker later in the
yeah.
round,
Late
later
in
in
the
the draft.
second, late in the third.
Let Gardner Minshew
Yeah,
start. Let Hendon
and I
Hooker be
yeah,
pressed to play only when Gardner Minshew goes down.
and
And Gardner Minshew's just got a little more moxie, gonna get a little more of your offense right than a
yeah.
Sam Ellinger.
Just
He's going to get more
yeah,
throws on schedule. And that's what I noticed today when I was watching him. I was at work today. I was watching him and I'm like, oh, Gardner Minshew's hitting guys in stride. Like, so he's
yeah.
completing
Do you
passes, anticipatory passes.
remember
So
do you remember the game? Like I remember it like it was yesterday. That game against the Jaguars, week one. The week one of the Philip Rivers year, where we were playing the Jaguars, and that Jaguar teams won just 2 games that year.
Yeah.
One was against us where Gardner Minshew completed, I believe it was 19 of 20 of his passes for
Yep.
almost 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. Like, he killed us. He
Yeah.
killed us. And ever since that game, I was like, hey, this is a guy that if you give him a supporting cast and you give him, an offense where he's comfortable in, and you do not ask him to do like you do not ask him to do just too much.
Yeah.
Like, he could be an slightly above average NFL quarterback. He
Yeah.
can take care of the ball. He has some mobility. He has extreme accuracy, in the short and intermediate game. He can be a serviceable NFL quarterback.
Yeah.
And I
He's
believe you
he's
give
in
him,
that like 12 to 16 range where
yeah,
it's like if he's
where you're
consistently a starter, he could be in the
and
top
I'm like,
half.
and I'm like, if you say that's why I wrote an article before we sign him, like cheap free agents,
Mm-hmm.
the Colts should target. And I thought, like, if we can get Garner Minshew on, say a 3-year deal,
Yeah.
and we give him, the entire season to showcase what he can do while we develop a rookie quarterback,
Yep.
like that would have been the best case scenario in my opinion. Richardson Minshew, you give Garner Minshew the entire year, and
Yep.
if he plays well, you have a trade asset that can be worth who knows how much. Like, if he plays right,
If he plays well,
like, you can trade him for, at least perhaps, at least the second round pick.
yeah.
And if he sucks, and let's just say, yeah, well, we saw it wrong, and Garner Minshew had just one good game and he sucks, you just go ahead and play Anthony Richardson and you
Run
keep Garner
people over.
Minshew as a backup.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
And teams
oh
learn
yeah,
how
it's
teams learn how to defend a designed run out of the quarterback. Yeah. And when you see
until
Anthony
they do it,
Richardson
yeah.
just book it for like a 70-yard touchdown and nobody touches him, and you're just like, right. And that's because in all of the football that's ever been played at the NFL level, guess what they don't train specifically? Tackling an athlete at quarterback. Why? Because they're afraid to hit him already. Watch Lamar Jackson run, and you're like, bro, it's like people won't touch him. That's so weird.
Yeah, I think,
It,
I think they
he's not getting
subconsciously,
touched.
they have to
Yeah,
know that if I hit him just a little too hard and
click
the
flag.
guy's a superstar quarterback, it's a 15-yard penalty.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. More,
Like, it's a
or
bias.
I could cause a fight. Multiple people get kicked out, fined. It's like not worth it, right?
Yeah.
So
So you're just like, okay,
I
let him
for
get out
one
of
am
bounds.
excited. It doesn't matter what happens. I'm with this. For the record, I'm not on team trade up. So there are people out there that like leverage whatever you can to get whatever spots you can get. I don't think you're taking. Here's the way I look at this. What's going on above us? There's a possibility you could trade into the third pick, but there's no way in hell that keep this in mind. Keep this in the back of your mind. The last game of the year, the Colts beat the Texans, and or no, is that right? And
Yeah.
took them out of the first pick. So by the Texans beating the Colts, it cost them the first overall pick. So now, kind of no matter how this shakes out, Houston is not getting the best quarterback in this class, right? They're getting second choice. It's pretty clear. Carolina traded up, and again, we were talking about before the show. You only trade up to the first overall pick if you know who you're going to pick,
Yeah.
and I'm comfortable in saving. I would not be surprised if Frank Reich and the Carolina Panthers selected Will Levis first overall. So that wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me either. Like, I would be okay. That makes sense, for Frank to take the guy that has, I believe he has like a
He
Bible
has a Bible
verse
verse
tattooed on
tattooed
his
on
right
his.
arm.
Yeah,
Yeah, on his. So I'm
it's
like,
got "Take
yeah,
me
that
first
would.
overall, Daddy" written all over it.
Yeah, that it just makes it
So if
would make
that's the
perfect
case,
sense.
it makes perfect sense. If that's the case, Will Levis is the first player off the board. Then that means that the Colts are going to be just fine, and that they made a terrible decision, and that will haunt them forever. And here's why. So recently we've been having a discussion in house. I wanted to talk about this because we kind of did go through all of the things that the Colts have done, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So pretty active, by the way. People talk about. I want to speak a moment to the haters. People talk about how Colts don't ever address the pass rush. Um, and also don't do anything in free agency. And it's kind of like, well, yeah, but they did re-sign an offensive lineman, re-sign EJ Speed, who I remember watching his film before he was drafted. And you got to remember, EJ Speed was supposed to go to Clemson. So this kid was gonna end up on a field somewhere anyway at the NFL level. And when you watch his film, he looks like a leopard on film, like in his college film, because obviously he's playing below the the level they need to be playing at. Um,
Yeah.
but like he was playing, and I'm making up a team, but like the College of Charleston, you know what I mean? Like he wasn't really playing
Yeah, it
like
was
Clemson,
Tarleton State.
Tarleton State, right? So he was not playing like Florida State, which is like the sort of the talent you would like to see him play against. But when you saw the way he moved, he just looked like completely different animal than anyone else on that field. And that's to his credit because he actually looks pretty good on on an NFL field too. He actually looked pretty good there too.
Yeah.
So yeah, they said that Colts don't ever do anything in free agency, and then the Colts have made like a bunch of moves, right? Like you just said, potentially signed Gardner Minshew, who unless you have amnesia, like he just had like a really good game against the Colts and also like has managed to stay in the league. You know what I mean? Like he's in the and
Yeah,
and
he's
again,
still
if he
here.
gets an opportunity, um, he could certainly make some noise. But like I said, the answer to the question is if you're at 4, do you take Will Levis? Well, no, but I also think there's a very good chance that Carolina could take him. And my evidence for this, the reason that Frank Reich takes Will Levis is because he signed Adam Thielen and he signed, oh, what's the tight end's name?
Hayden Hurst.
Hayden Hurst. So he got him a couple white boy receivers and Will Levis, and will come out in them all black unis and just look striking. I don't know about scoring, but like it's striking when like pale white people wearing all black. But yeah, I just I'm anxious for Carolina because I think we're predicting correctly that they're gonna take Will Levis because he's got a big Bible verse tattooed on his forearm. That's actually pretty funny. That's teed up for Frank Reich though. And then
Yeah.
that's too easy. So like I said, that probably won't happen now that we've like said it out loud. That's kind of how my life
Yeah.
works. But
Yeah,
yeah,
we jinxed it.
um, but yeah, I think here we are about I think we're about a month out, right, from the draft.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
at the end
I
of
think
April,
it's
right?
an exact month. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we're about a month out. And that's kind of how the off season's kind of gone. Obviously it's quiet for a while, and then I just thought it was kind of funny that all the usual suspects on the internet were like, "Oh, Colts ain't gonna do shit." They're in a complete rebuild. They're burning it all down. Blah 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 blah. They trade Stephon Gilmore, and for a moment it was like, "Oh shit!" Like it might be really, but then it was like somebody just pointed out like how old he was to me, and I was just like, "Oh yeah, get it." Get something for him while the getting's good. Get him out of here. Let him go try to do something in Dallas, right? Like Dallas is trying to do that every year. So it's not surprised. But I mean, it does kind of bother me that they gave up on Ezekiel Elliott and signed and traded for Stephon Gilmore. Anyway, like they're not very loyal to their own to pick up, Stephon Gilmore and his third team. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's I feel like that's a good summation of what's gone on in the last couple weeks. We talked about pretty much all
Yeah,
their
with the
transactions.
Colts.
Oh,
Yeah.
Matt Gay, they signed a kicker. People
Ah,
gave me
yeah, I know
shit about signing a kicker. So
we
here
both love the
let
move.
me explain how kickers have affected my life. Okay. So I literally have spent like the last few years getting some coaching certifications to coach football. And in fact, recently had a meeting, so I'm bragging at about an hour long phone call with Del Smith. And Del Smith is one of the most successful college and high school football coaches ever. Coached high school football, D1, D2, D3, and is now the headmaster at an all boys military school in Virginia. Um, so I just met with him for about an hour. I'll meet with him about once a month for the next about year, learning the X's and O's from an absolute football legend, right? So I'm excited about that. Learn how to break down film and padding film and all that shit. Um, and so I got into this because the Colts should have beat the Bills in the playoffs. And absolutely, Frank Reich did not trust his kicker, as evidenced by not kicking when he should have kicked and then kicking when he absolutely shouldn't have kicked. And it was just like a terribly managed football game. And I thought, like,
Yeah,
I try to always put myself in their position and how nerve-wracking it would be to playing in front of all those people in that crazy of weather. And I'm like, no, because my brain was still saying, like, no, this is a chip shot. You take this, it's early, it's windy. You need the kicker to have his shit down, especially from short distance, because that's where you got to kick your extra points from. You're going to score a touchdown in the game, right?
yeah,
So, like, if you get down there early and you're just trapped, like, you want to get away with points, right? Like, you had up early. They lost by 3 for the record. So the reason I'm talking about this is because there's three big decisions in that game that affected the outcome. And it's just like that haunts you. If you're like that close, like we had, I mean, think about how much different this experience is since Andrew Luck has left. If you
yeah,
win another couple games in the playoffs, I didn't even say win the fucking Super Bowl. I'm just saying, like, you win that game against the Bills, I might not get into coaching. I might not literally post on social media like, maybe I'm just dumb, and I have narcissism is my and my ego is the problem, right? And then for the record, nope. I went and coached football for a whole year. I coached a bunch of adults with jobs and shit, and went undefeated and beat. And I was talking about to Del Smith about this because he's asking me about my coaching experience, and I told him like Harrison Bernstein, who's really good friends with Greg Williams. You know who that is? Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
Harrison
According, yeah,
Bernstein turned down a job on Greg Williams' staff to run Soldiers to Sidelines. That's my mentor because he realized that it's at the high school level that we need really good coaching, and so they're trying to lean on veterans to coach high school sports. So for the record, I'm using this organization for not what its intended purpose is, but that's what they've advised me. This is not my choosing. Otherwise, I'd just be volunteering at a high school. Um, so I'm even going back to school to get a degree in analytics. I'm not going to get an education degree, be a teacher, so I can be a high school coach. I already told them I would do that. And they were like, don't do that. Lots of people told me, like, don't do that. Do something else. So I'm getting a degree in analytics so that there's some semblance of a chance I can get like promoted once I get on
yeah,
a staff somewhere. So anyway, so I made a lot of life changes. I think well, I was just a journalist a few years ago. You know what I mean? Like I just
yeah,
was talking about this shit a few years ago, and then it burnt me forever. Or I will forever think less of Frank Reich for that because I felt like we were in the best position we've been in. So like we could have won like a couple. We were really good. Like there, we were a quarterback away, and Philip Rivers was pretty goddamn good, and he was like a
yeah,
playoff kind of quarterback. So I was really butthurt after that, and then there had been mismanagement before and since then. But tell me when I'm crazy, Frank Reich is a frustrating coach to watch
yeah.
because
No,
of
yeah, I
what
agree.
happens on the field, the product. Like it feels like there's a lack of accountability. It feels like we're not out there with all of it. That we're flying by the seat of their pants. Nobody knows what they're doing. Fuck it, just go play. Yeah, that's what it kind of feels like. And then like if we do well and we win, we win. You know, it's like what you're saying. Like Stephon Gilmore won us these games. And then you think about like, yeah, because it wasn't gonna be anyone else, it wasn't gonna be a coach, right? Like some coach wasn't gonna mastermind the Colts into a win, right? No, I think
Yeah,
again, I will forever wonder what happened, what broke down between Frank Reich, the O line sticking with Frank Reich and really liking Frank Reich, and them regressing as a unit for the year. What happened, right? So there's that. And then I will also forever think about Naheem Hines and Marcus Brady gets traded, gets let
yeah.
go.
Getting,
And I'll always think about how weird this is, okay? Like nobody has ever come out and spoke ill of Frank. Everybody's full loves Frank Reich, supports Frank Reich, right? But shit, all this is very weird to me now with them, signing Hayden Hurst, signing Adam Thielen. We're joking about like they're gonna sign this white quarterback, he's got a Bible verse on his arm, right? Like that's just weird to me. This feels weird to point
Yeah.
out, but it's probably part of the reason he got fired, right? Like it's probably something that he's got to go figure out. In Charlotte, for the record, Charlotte's really diverse, so it's not like you could just go to Charlotte and it's just fine. No, like he went to an area of the country that is diverse, and I think that it's just a weird situation. I'm glad that we have a new head coach, and then we're going in a completely new direction. And I think that the Colts have hired staff members. So in addition to all these transactions that we just talked about, they've hired staff that are like quarterback groomers. Like this is what they do. So I fully expect not only Colts take a quarterback, but like I said, I'm not on a bet on Will Levis if he's their guy. I'm a team trade back to Hendon Hooker because he's got Peyton Manning's blessing guy. And
Yeah.
that lines up with the Shane Steichen hire, who had Peyton Manning's blessing, and so you see how it all kinds of runs together. And keep in mind, we don't know any of this. None of us are insiders at
Yeah,
Stampede Blue.
we don't have any sources.
Mm-mm.
We're just taking educated guesses.
Nah, because like I said, there's just way too much public information. And we're not really prognosticating anything. I don't know who's picking who. I can't see. Here's what I can't see. I can't see Houston getting it right if the team in front of them gets it wrong. So, you know what I mean? Like I could absolutely see Carolina takes Will Levis, Houston takes Anthony Richardson, and you're like, oh, well, he won't be there in 5 years. So, you know what I mean? Like, oh, they didn't take the franchise quarterback of the future, Stroud or Young. They take Anthony Richardson. He's either gonna light the league on fire, or oh, he's a Houston Texan. Yeah, that's gonna last like
Yeah.
5 years and he's gone. And I absolutely believe that. Like, it does the matter who goes where. And yeah, I think that I would rather sign Lamar Jackson than trade up to 3. Because again, I think it's probably gonna cost. What if they say trade us 1s this year, give us your 2 next year, and your 2 the year following?
Yeah, I would do that. I mean, if it gets me either one of the 3, I would do that.
I'm just saying, like it had to be a super friendly trade, and I just don't feel like the NFL is like that. I feel like they've got a better offer than that on the table. That's what I'd said. Once Carolina traded with Chicago, moved up to the 1, immediately I was like, you know what? Did the 3 just become more valuable than the 1? Like, is there a chance here where Arizona could potentially get more for the 3rd pick in this draft?
Than the Bears got.
And you could almost do it
for
on
the number
draft
1
day.
overall.
Yeah, because I mean, I think a lot of people have said, somebody said, and I'm trying to remember who said this, that Arizona needs too much defensive line help to skip out on taking one of these D linemen, the Will Andersons of the world, your Jalen Carters, whatever, whose draft stock is plummeting, by the way. But yeah, the ongoing conversation is that Arizona needs too much defensive line help to be able to trade back anyway.
For them to be trade back like down to the 10, 15. Like they need either Jalen Carter or Will Anderson, and they are not gonna be there at 10 or 15. So yeah.
Yeah, and I have a feeling they stick and they take a pass rusher, and the Colts are get one of the whoever's remaining. So yeah, I think that's a good. We talked at length about the Colts and what's going on. The Pacers are on TV right now. Last I looked, they was up 20, and they need them.
Yeah,
So let's switch gears. Let's talk about the Pacers. We just talked about it. They have 39 losses. Right? They're the 11th out of 15 seed. I think they're 2 games behind Chicago.
Yeah,
if I read
1.5
that right.
behind.
Or were they 1.5?
Yeah, I believe it's 1.5 behind the Chicago Bulls.
So a win tonight. Basically, what I was saying is, we presume they'll win tonight. So I'll look at the scoreboard while we're talking one last time. So right now, Pacers are up. Oh, Pacers are up 8 at the half. Okay, so they were up 19 when I was looking earlier. They're up
Yeah,
40. They're up
but
21.
yeah,
Sorry.
I don't see how they're gonna lose this one. Perhaps it's gonna be closer, but yeah, I don't see a way we drop this one.
Tyrese Halliburton out for a few games with a knee injury. Something along the lines of he'll be back Thursday. Okay, which is great news, especially given that Colts Pacers presumably win this game today. And then all I'm saying is they basically have like 10 games left. And it's kind of a thing we got to turn it up, right? Like you
Yeah,
got to do something that you haven't done the back half of the season, which is put together like a pretty good 10 game stretch. Right now, presuming they win tonight, they're 6-4 in their last 10, and they'd been 6-4 going into this game in their last 10. So slightly above average. They have to go more along the lines of 8-2, 9-1, undefeated the rest of the way out, to give themselves like some expectation of either making
yeah,
it into the play-in game or just making it stone to the playoffs. Because like you pointed out, like, hey, Chicago's actually got a shit schedule coming down the back stretch. Like they actually are in some trouble. That's cool, but also it got to win. Just because I think like a lot of teams aren't young like the Pacers are that have these legs that they could actually play all
yeah,
82. And they've got plenty of guys. They're winning games without Halliburton, and that's one thing that the Pacers have to be able to do is win without the kid. Because they're certainly winning with him, right?
yeah.
So yeah, I actually, um, like I said, I was thinking about how to quantify where would the Pacers be if not for Tyrese Halliburton, and the thought process I was thinking about is like they're more like a 25 win team.
Yeah,
Um,
25. Definitely fighting for that first overall pick and like definitely in the bottom 3, 5 if you ask me.
and he hasn't even played the full season, but honestly, when it feels like it feels like the Showtime Lakers. They just feel like they move so much better. Guys are so much more open and hitting their open shots, right? And like when you watch them play now, they feel a little more condensed. Like they're not as spread out. They're not moving the ball as well. Um, and
Yeah,
that and like I said, obviously Halliburton gives the Pacers some juice because he's young. He's got young legs. So I'd be excited if the Pacers got into the playoffs at all, like had any chance healthy in the playoffs, because they do play well when they're healthy. But it is something you got to point out. Like they're just not winning a lot of games without Halliburton healthy, um, and that's something that will we'd look forward to in the future with these guys. But yeah, because they've got a bunch of draft picks too, so the Pacers are just going to get more competitive and younger.
yeah,
And the thing about it is, like I said, where they are versus where they could be. If they don't have a Tyrese Halliburton, man, they're in trouble this year. And so they're bottom of the barrel, looking at a one pick. There's really not that guy in this class anyway. So like you don't want to be there picking no first overall and they're in the lot or in the lottery, I guess is probably a better way to say it. You want to kind of stay away from the lottery this year. So
yeah.
that's why, for the record, because a lot of people have asked me, hey man, how come if you're the Pacers, you're just not tanking out at this point of the year? Like you're not winning a title. And it's like, well, here's the thing, the bubble changed everything. And it kind of exposed that if you can get a bunch of people to just shut off what is going on off that court and just focus on the game, a lot of these teams are a lot
Anything
better.
can happen. Yeah,
Anything can happen. A lot of these teams are a lot closer than you think. Um, and so I think organizationally and as a team, like I could think about it like as a business and as a sports team, you just want to get into the playoffs, actually. You just want to get a shot to the dance. Because it's about who's healthy and ready to play that day. And there's so many fucking games in the NBA. It's like trying to do that as often as
Yeah,
possible is the key to winning more basketball games. But yeah, I've even I had someone ask me like, if you're the Pacers, are you shitty that Domantas Sabonis is a top 10 and MVP candidate in Sacramento, and you've got Halliburton who's dinged up all the time, and it's just like, well, when you have a guy could get you like 20 and 20 assists, right? Like, yeah, he's actually worth trading Sabonis for, and Sabonis was another center, and we
yeah,
have one of those already. So it's like, no, I'm fine with this. Like Halliburton, they'll get an off season
yeah,
to condition and prepare themselves for an NBA season. And like I said,
yeah,
if you can get into a spot where Halliburton plays 65 games, they're gonna win like 45 of them. You know what I mean? Like he's a win more player. You win more with players like that are naturally unselfish, but that can absolutely score. If you put me in a position to, I can
yeah,
create my
yeah.
own shot. I can do all those things. But he's looking to distribute the basketball. Um, it's a great spot to be in. And if I'm Miles Turner, my career was rejuvenated by that trade, and Halliburton's been a godsend for him because he's getting set up in transition. He's getting looks in the post. He's stepping out. Uh, Miles Turner is getting to contribute in a variety of ways where I don't think if you don't have like a Halliburton, you can't trust that you're gonna be
Yeah.
able to design an offense to get a player like him those opportunities. Oof, he'll just airball to three. Jesus, takes all the wind out of your sails. Um, but yeah, I think at this point you just want to if you're the Pacers or teams adjacent, you're just trying to get into the playoffs. So like all I'm saying is you'd like to see the team turn it up down the stretch here. I hadn't even looked. I feel the best I felt about the Pacers in years. I've actually watched like a
Yeah.
pretty good person. I probably watched most, if not all, of the Pacers games this year. I feel actually good about that. I don't normally like because it's just been bad. So yeah, to close the season out, let's see: Toronto, Boston, Atlanta, Dallas, Milwaukee, Oklahoma City, Cleveland, New York, Detroit. Wow, so their last like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5
Yeah.
games,
Really
not
accessible
terrible.
games.
Yeah, the Toronto, Boston, Dallas, Milwaukee. So there's like 4 games that are tough. You got to win a couple of them. Um,
Yeah.
again, presuming so they have one. We'll talk about tonight as though. Did we talk about what the score is? That's weird. It is live. So Pacers are up 4 with 8 minutes left in the third. It's hard to presume that they win, but you would hope that they'd win against a team with
Yeah, you'd
22
hope that.
wins
Yeah.
that Michael Jordan is selling. Um, yeah, Michael Jordan's approach got away of horny success. And you know what else is funny too? I wanted to point this out on a podcast I was on. Are you a Michael Jordan fan at all?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
definitely.
was watching The Last Dance today. They were showing it on ESPN, and I was at work, so I wasn't listening to it. I was reading the subtitles, and Michael Jordan sounds like just like my old man. Like that's funny to me, right? The greatest basketball player of all time, like the way he speaks and the shit that he says, and you're like, oh, I get it why that didn't gel in an NBA organization. He sounds like my dad. Like, cause he's basically like my old man. Like they're over the hill, and they're 60. He just turned 60, right? Um, but yeah, I just think it's kind of funny because my dad coached sports when I was a little kid, and I remember being like in 6th grade and being like, I don't think he's motivating us as well as he could be. Like, I think he's actually turning people off to basketball. That's weird. You know what I mean? Just realizing like, oh, he's not a coach. That's awful for him.
Yeah, that's
Probably something he
yeah.
wanted to do. But yeah, um, Michael Jordan apparently is selling his controlling interest in the Charlotte Hornets, and the only reason we brought that up is, of course, the Pacers are playing the Hornets. And this is a Indiana Pacers Indianapolis Colts podcast, so it kind of tracks, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was think it's funny. I I'm actually one of those rare people you ever met in your life that's met Michael Jordan in 3 different stages of my life. Like, I met him when I was a real little kid, um, in Chicago. I was less than 10 years old. And then when I was a teenager, when the Pacers were good in the Reggie Miller sort of era, the there was a Bulls Pacers game. I was on a date. It was a home and away game. So like you played them at home and then you played them on the road. And I was at both. And the second time Michael Jordan recognized me and he's like, "What's up, man? Like I remember you from the other night. Like, hey, what's up, bro?" And he's like, "Didn't you used to be a Chicago Bills fan?" I was like, "Yeah, when I was a little kid." And he was just like, "So wait, we've met before?" And I was like, "Yeah, we met when I was a real little kid, like I was like 9." And he was like, "Why are you wearing a Pacers jersey?" I'm like, "We moved to Indiana. I don't want to get beat up, and my starter jacket is screwed up. So I got a Pacers one. I got a Miller jersey. I'm about it. About them Davis boys." He was just like, "Hate it." Anyway, I also met Michael Jordan much later in life, like another 15 years or so, 13 or 15 years. I was in the Marine Corps. I was on like a 96 and I was due to go meet a friend in Charlotte. And on the way, there was a radio contest where the prize was box seats to the Charlotte Hornets.
Yeah.
I thought this said Charlotte Bobcats. Charlotte Hornets. Or was it the Bobcats? Hell, I don't know. This is a long time ago. It was about a decade ago. That's why. No, it's not a decade ago. It was 15 years ago. It's 15, 16 years ago. Yeah.
So yeah, it
So
should
they
have been
had,
the back.
yeah, so it was the Bobcats. So they had a radio contest where like winners get box seats to the game and you get to do a meet and greet with Michael Jordan. Well, of course, like this kid from outside Chicago that is in the Marine Corps and Michael Jordan's like from North Carolina and owns a team. Like, hell yeah, I'm gonna call in and win that shit. Of course I did. So I get there and meet my friend, and she's like, "What are we doing tonight?" And I'm like, we're going to a Bobcats game." So no shit, we went into the owner's suite and I stood there for a few minutes, and I was just like, "This is real wood." And I like remember knocking on shit, and I'm like, "This is like where the owner sits." Like, trust me, I've been in like the non-owner suites in these big stadiums, and this shit's plastic. Tell me I'm lying, right? No, was real wood. It was like finished and had, you know what I mean? Like we
Yeah.
stained
Yeah, the
this, you
good
know what I mean?
stuff.
Yeah, and I feel a warm hand on the back of my shoulder, and it was like, "Hey man, what's going on?" I was like, "Oh shit, it's Michael." Like, "What's up, bro?" And he was like, "Did they let you in the owner suite this time?" And I was like, "Yeah, it felt a little weird. I was checking the railing here." And then he immediately goes, "Do I know you from somewhere?" And then I had to be like, "Yeah, actually, like like
Yeah,
five,
we
six
met.
years. We met like 5, 6 years ago. I was on a date, and for a weekend, she wanted to see Michael Jordan play. And just so happened that you had a home and away with the Pacers. So you played in Indy one night, and you played in Chicago, and a couple nights later, and we literally like got a hotel, stayed downtown Indy, and then drove up to Chicago, got a hotel, and went to the game. And the second time, you were like, "I recognize you somewhere," and I was like, "Yeah, I was. You're sitting 13th row the other night. I was giving you shit." And he was like, "Yeah, weren't you wearing like a Bulls hat or something?" And I was like, "Yeah, I was." And then I had to wear my girlfriend then it was like, "You're a Pacers fan. You should wear your Reggie Miller jersey." And like I wore Reggie Miller jersey, and he gave me shit about it. And he was like, "I remember that." And he was like, "No, I've known you from somewhere else." And I was like, "Yes, I met you when I was a little kid." And he was just like, "And you won tickets off the radio?" And I was like, "Yeah, I really did." And he was like, "Why you was driving?" And I was like, "Why I was driving." Pulled over in the rest stop and everything to be like finalize all the shit and like go pick up the tickets and shit. And he was like, "I just can't believe they let you in the owner's suite. Like I can't believe they let you in here." And I was just like, "Yeah, this is weird, right?" And he just lit a cigar and was like, "You want a drink?" And I was just like, "Sure." Like, who the fuck wouldn't? And then we just like had a drink, and then he was like, "All right, guys, have a good night. Like, you can go sit wherever the fuck you want." You know what I mean? Like, there ain't nobody here. Like, we just.
Yeah.
I remember we went and sat down in front of them, and he like was like, "You can come up here and get a drink if you want to," and we were like, "No, like it's cool. Like I like you. Just leave it that way. Like it's okay."
Damn.
Like he was fine. He was nice to me. He was not at all a dickhead. Did not ask me to play darts or pool or none of that shit. A lot of people have told me over time when you tell them the story about me and Michael Jordan, they're like, "Yo, you ever met somebody who's your hero and they're a complete weirdo?" And I'm like, "Yes, Peyton Manning."
Yeah.
Yeah, Peyton Manning was a complete weirdo when I met him. So my a girlfriend over a decade ago was a server slash bartender at a bar on the south side of Indianapolis. And one day I went in there and it was way before quitting time. It was like 3:30 in the afternoon. Basically, I'd given her a ride to work, and I thought, fuck, I'll just go in there and play a little pool by myself. Like, who wouldn't?
Yeah.
Right? Well, I go in there to play a little pool, and I'm dead serious. I was playing a little pool, and I turn around, and there's a guy in a orange polo and jeans, and I thought it was a little weird because it was a little warm for jeans. And I remember thinking, like, he's like 6'5" ish. That could be Peyton Manning. And it motherfucker turned around and standing right there is Peyton Manning. And he's like, hey, you want to play some pool? And I was just like, absolutely, let's do that. And we played a few games of pool. Another buddy of mine showed up and we played, like, there was more than me just standing there. And then the bar got unnecessarily busy at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And you can imagine why. Peyton Manning was
Yeah.
there playing, but he was there for like 90 minutes, had a beer, paid his little tab and left. That's not that big of a story. I'm glad that that's it. I'm happy. He wasn't a
Yeah, that's a
jerk.
good one.
Wasn't a jerk. He was kind. He didn't. He's not like he bought the bar, got everyone fucking faded. No, no. In fact, he left. It was perfect. He had one beer and left. It was great.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Didn't make a scene. It's probably
Yeah, just
the
a good
most.
one.
It was
Yeah.
probably. I venture to say I remember telling somebody about this way later because obviously there goes a while in your life where like you can't talk about everything that happens to you because people wouldn't believe you in a million years, right? Like if I literally sat down and told anyone in my life at 3 points in my life I met Michael Jordan. I've also met Peyton Manning. I've also interviewed Pat McAfee, right? They'd be like, you're fucking lying. And it's like, well, I can prove at least 2 of those because I have pictures. And like the other way, you just got to buy that. Like, what the fuck ever? Who cares? It's not like I'm
Yeah.
saying they sold me their business or anything. But I found it funny, right? Pacers are playing the Hornets. Hornets are for sale. The talk recently has been negative about Michael Jordan and about how like he failed at this like ownership thing and about like his attitude doesn't work with today's kids. Um, it's really hard when you're 40 years older than these kids and you can't it's
Yeah.
hard to relate, right? So I kind of empathize with MJ having to like give up control of an organization because you're just it's
Yeah, you're
not
not
for
cut
you, and
for
it's
it.
not how you want to relate to these kids either. It's not how you want to be remembered. You don't want to go down as like a bitter goat, you know what I mean? Like nobody wants the guy that is, I always think about something about Michael Jordan that they will never do to any other athlete. When you talk about an athlete in another sport that's the best at their sport, they call them the Michael Jordan of their sport, right? So when we think about athletes, like you can imagine how being considered the greatest of all time is struggling to like relate to kids that are doing what he did at that level 30 fucking years ago. You know what I mean? Like a long time ago. And
Yeah.
so, and he's an owner. And the thing about owners is owners aren't supposed to be sitting on the sideline. You know what I mean? Mark Cuban just loves
Yeah, he's
basketball.
an exception.
He's an exception to the rule. And I think like, especially when you're a former player. I mean, Larry Bird struggled too. You know what I mean? Like it's not like it's all roses for everybody, but not everybody that played the sport is meant to coach it, right?
Yeah,
And
sure.
mostly I think it's because most people can what I've learned is most people can understand the X's and O's, but they can't understand the other shit, right? They have trouble relating, they have trouble communicating. That's why your football team's bad, by the way, is they're not all gelling. They're not all on the same page. And then, you know what will stick out with me for a while? Lane Johnson. Do you know who that is? The
No.
tackle for the Eagles?
Yeah, Lane. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Lane
Yeah,
Johnson. He
65.
made this comment. It's just something to think about. This is why I got into coaching. This is one of the things that drives me. Lane Johnson just lost the Super Bowl, and he's getting interviewed. And I'm fuck it. It was busting with the boys. I don't know if it was busting the boys, but the question was, how often do you go to the line of scrimmage and you don't know the play? And he goes, oh shit, like 75% of the time. Okay, well, that's a Pro Bowl, Hall of Fame tackle in the NFL telling you that even at that level, communication is an issue. Understanding the assignment is the issue. That's the loser. I personally guarantee you, if you interview a player for the Chiefs, they do not say that. I bet you they know what the play was. So that's all I'm saying. I let that kind of shit drive me. Like that is a really good offensive tackle in the NFL saying like our communication sucks. And we were in the Super Bowl. then it makes me believe that like I've started drinking my own Kool-Aid where I'm like, I know what the fuck I'm talking about. You know what I mean? Like, listen,
Yeah.
this guy playing in the Super Bowl doesn't even know the play half the time. Come on, this is a game that can be beat. That's probably just my ego. You know what I mean? But yeah, the Pacers now are
Are
losing.
tying, yeah.
They're
Ah,
losing.
they're losing now?
Yeah, losing
Shit.
by a couple to the Hornets. So obviously they're in a dogfight. But yeah, I think that we've talked at length about both the Colts and Pacers and what's gone on in the last week and some change, brother.
Yeah.
You got anything for us on the way out the door? I mean, obviously, what's your answer? I guess we should go back to this. Circle back to this before we leave. You're Chris Ballard. You're at 4, and it's gone Stroud, Young, Richardson. What are you doing?
I'm either trading back and recouping some of that draft capital for later, or I'm taking, I'm just going best player available and taking Will Anderson. Just fuck it, we get a quarterback somewhere down the line, but this time I'm not picking Will Levis.
Not in this universe. Not in this
Yeah.
metaverse. All right.
Yeah, not happening.
I can't leverage the future of my franchise on somebody I evaluate outside the top 5.
Yeah.
I evaluate him like possibly a first round quarterback. You know what I mean? And if it's like my choice at 4 is possibly a first round draft pickable quarterback, or do anything else with that pick, and it's like do anything else with that pick because we've seen what happens when you take the guy that could be a good guy, good starter in the NFL. I don't see Will Levis as a 12 to 16th or in the NFL or better guy. I see him as like a 17 to 20 guy, and like you can get that in the second round. You don't need to get that at 4. You get a lot better before that. But yeah, this has been episode 5, calling it the
best of the rest.
Best of the rest / the what if episode. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you. Try to do another couple weeks because the next one I believe would be like a pre-draft podcast, and then the one after that would be like the right around the draft or after the draft.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Yeah. So look forward to a little more draft heavy convo. Because obviously it's like we kind of led with, hey, the Colts got all kinds of holes. Cornerback, wide receiver. Obviously, got to pick quarterback here in this draft. We've clearly got issues at O-line that need to be addressed. Got to figure out how you're going to pay Lamar Jackson. Just kidding, wink, wink.
Yeah.
We'll see you guys.
Oh yeah, see you.